You got that 26 million and that 9 million in construction in progress. So if you glance down to your liabilities, you got $53,952,000 in assets, and you have liabilities of 28,297,000 in liabilities. And that's the current hard liabilities. And then you have to add on some more stuff that relates to pension. That's what we call deferred outflows and resources. And up here you got, in the assets, you've got the deferred outflows of resources. Those are, again, they're associated with just time, things that change between year and year, relating to the liability that you're not going to have to pay anyway. But it distorts your income statement or your balance sheet somewhat. But your overall net position is 21,420,000, and that's your capital. That's your fund balance, however you want to call it. But that represents the operating cushion, so to speak, that the city has. And it's calculated based on the numbers that are coming down the balance sheet. So overall, you're in pretty good position on either balance sheet. Now, this is an interesting statement, this statement on page 17. This is what's called a statement of activities. It's really an income statement on the full accrual basis. It breaks down your expenditures according to the governmental classifications. It's not a detailed breakdown. And it also breaks down your income. It breaks it down relating to charges for services that you collect, capital grants and contributions that you receive. I'm going across the page now. And then also you've got a recap out here of your business type activities, which fall down to the column there below. You got water, sewer, and sanitation. When you look at the city, you look at both of them. So the far right total is the numbers that relate to both general government and the enterprise funds. And from top to bottom, that would be your income statement. Of course, this is kind of funny looking because your expenses are somewhat, they're netted off up top against your revenues. And that's what's actually happening here. If you start out with an expense of $1,893,000 and you charged off, you collected $194,000, well, then your overall general government expense was $1,698,000. And that bleeds across, and then in comes the business type. So your overall primary government at that level, this is the operating level, was a negative 13 million. And then you bring in the rest of your revenue down below under general revenues. So your overall change in net position on the full accrual was a negative $1,492,000. There were some prior period adjustments that were made, but you end in net position now. I mean, am I saying that right? Do they have a negative or a positive change in net position? Now,
I don't have a copy of the report.
negative. Sometimes negatives are positives in this state.
Yeah.
Okay, we're good. But your net position currently is 25 million. Okay, on the governmental statements, this is the kind of statements that are very close to your budget. If you look on page 19, the way this thing is set up, 18 and 19, we start with your general fund. General funds are always classified under major program. And then we've got what we call major funds. And there's certain numeric tests that we go through based on the numbers from each fund to determine whether they're considered major funds or not. The significance of being a major fund is that that particular fund's results, operating results, both on the balance sheet and the income statement, you might notice all these areas across the top. Economic Development, General Bond Fund, Baxter Bond, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Their numbers are presented exclusively each fund. Everything else is lumped into a column called total governmental, other governmental funds. That would be the next to the last column on the right. So if you're considered a major fund, these statements show what each fund did, both in balance sheet changes and in income, revenue, expenses. If it's other governmental, it's all lumped together in that one column. And then the total on the far right is everything added up together. But, on this balance sheet real quick, you got total asset, total cash of 18 million. Total assets of 18 million, and you got total liabilities of 1,568,000. Now, these are real assets because capital assets have been drawn out of here. So this brings it more back to a cash basis. So, the city's been run properly, really good, well, for a lot of years. And over the years, they've accumulated a pretty sound financial position. And I don't see anything in this year that really has any effect on that. It's just pretty much rolls out every year, y'all operate under what you got to operate, what you have to operate on, and don't make unnecessary improvements and stuff like that. And that rolled into a lot of years creates a balance sheet like this. So y'all are in good shape financially and have been and will be in the future, I'm pretty sure. There are a couple things that I'd like to go to on page I always like to go over the capital asset note. Find that note on page 37. This is a breakdown of the capital assets. This would be your buildings and equipment, the lands that you own. And you'll notice we're going to cut this in half between business type and governmental activities. If you look up the top half of the page, you've got your additions and your deletions and any adjustments that have to be made. And like in 2020, your additions to those capital assets, most of which was in construction in progress to go along with the big projects y'all got going on, was $4,827,000. So that's what you spent pretty much on those projects. Your deletions represent assets that are retired and they are moved off of the capital asset list as you approve their disposal. The adjustments column generally deals with moving stuff out of construction in progress into finished status. If you look here, you fall up in construction in progress. That 569, 189 was a project that was completed. So once that happens, we reduce construction in progress and increase your total capital assets. So that's how that works. But overall, your net capital assets that shows up on your financial statements for governmental activities is going to be 35,730,139. And that is a netting of the accumulated depreciation, current and accumulated depreciation that's shown just above it. And the assets acquired for that year. all added or subtracted from the beginning balance. So you got $35 million worth of general government assets. Down at the bottom, you're looking at the same scenario setup. This deals with your business type. That would be your water, sewer, and sanitation. Of course, theirs is much less, but they do have fairly significant infrastructure, as you could imagine, with the water and gas distribution that's in place. Your total netting of the depreciation and the business type, it comes out to be 16,496,000. So the overall city capital asset situation would be the 35 million from the governmental and the 16 million from the business type. So that's going to be up in the high 40 millions. But actually, 35, be close to 50 million in assets. Okay, the other thing I like to look at here is your schedule of long-term debt. And I want to point something out to you right. This won't take this. Go to page 40. You see where it says defined benefit pension plan? On note 12. I want to show you how many pages are dedicated to pension liability, which you'll probably never have to pay anyway. Keep going on over. 43. Let's see. Down to it cuts off at top of page 43. Now you might be wondering what your percentage is of the overall state split. What page was that on? Way back in the back.
It does show it within the note.
Where was that schedule?
17.4.
Oh,
It's back in the back under analysis.
yeah.
41.
56.
Yes, 56. Your overall split. I'm sorry, I should have written it down when I 55. Your overall share of the state of Mississippi PERS pension is the first line on that schedule on page 55. .0808. And that's how the amount of the numbers that you have to report are calculated at that percentage of whatever the state is. And each entity has a separate percentage based on the number of people that you have included in PERS. Okay, the last thing I like to look at is long-term debt. If you look on page 45, there is a schedule at the bottom part of that page. It shows changes in your long-term debt for the year. You'll notice this is also broken down between governmental and business type. coming into at the end of September 19, you had $10,165,420 general government outstanding debt. Is everybody with me? You added $3,824,000 during the year, and you paid off $1,654,000. So your ending balance at the end of 2020 is $12,335,259. And the amount that's coming due, that your current debt service for the year you're operating in right now is $1,782,663. And the same information with your business type, your beginning outstanding debt was $11,118,321, and your new debt was $2,001,452, and your reductions were $694,000. So your ending balance there is $12,425,000. So you're looking at about total outstanding debt of $24,700,000 and some thousand citywide, which, you know, the amount of debt that you incur, I know a lot of it is project related now. Y'all got a lot of projects going on. So that debt will go up while that's happening. But once that ceases, you're going to start paying it back down. Y'all never really had a problem with debt limitation. I think it's being monitored pretty close by Dominic and Michelle. But I wouldn't be overly alarmed that your debt increased when you got all those projects. All right. We had a few findings in the audit this year. None really significant. They've all been addressed and answered. And we're satisfied that the answers are good answers. One dealt with a bank account that had an overdrawn, not a bank account, but a fund account that had a slightly overdrawn balance. Technically, that's against the law. But it existed in an area where you had two identical funds, both pertaining to the same thing, a debt. And I suggested, and it is, when it hits these financial statements, it's combined. I suggested that they go ahead and combine that on the books. Have one fund on the books. And that way that you had plenty of money in the other fund, not quite enough in one fund. It's just kind of an oversight. Not worried about that. We did notice a little bit of circumvision of your purchasing internal control. And basically that is, we're noticing purchase orders that are dated after the invoice date. And the purpose of a purchase order is to make sure that when accounts payable gets ready to pay it, they can rely on the fact that based on the approvals and the receiving data, that the invoice, it was done correctly, that where you had a purchase authorization, a purchase order, if that was approved, you had a purchase order issued, invoice came, when the merchandise came, you should have receiving documentation that came with it, and all that's attached together in accounts payable before it's presented to you on the claims document. I don't think necessarily these were significant items, but spread over all your, I'll just tell you, we detected 5 out of 60 that we tested. And you expand that over the total volume of the city over a year's time, that can grow to be
Is that all in the same department?
I don't think, was that?
I don't believe so.
No, it was spread out. But that's just something, it just takes pressure from the top to impress that it's your intention that the city abide by the state purchasing system. And, if you got a continuous violator, call him in. Ask him why he can't do what everybody else does. But like I said, it's not serious, it's not rampant, but you really ought not find any when you go in and test that stuff. And I think that's really, there were a couple of other findings, but I don't think that's worth bringing up to the board. Mainly the one I was interested in, and really the cash deal wasn't that big a deal. But I did want to talk to you a little bit about your purchasing, because generally in the past, you've done well progressing with your purchasing. And when you know that there are non-compliant people that are not doing what they're supposed to do, that'll grow if you don't deal with it. And I don't mean fire them or anything like that. I mean, give them a good old fashioned talk about what you're doing.
It's been coming up every department head meeting lately.
That's a good thing. But I'm real pleased to have the opportunity to work with y'all on an annual basis. Y'all can and do call me from time to time, talk about stuff. And you want to know how it's going to play out in the audit or something like that, I can tell you all that. I don't mind telling you all that. But are there any questions relating to this? I know it was fast and probably you didn't get a whole lot out of it, but I did feel like it was necessary for the new board members
Sure,
to go through that old spiel.
I agree.
And, that way, when they look at these reports, they're not wondering what they're looking at. They know they're looking at two different types of financial statements on the city. Both of them are correct under the basis that they're prepared on, but the bottom line numbers are not going to match because of the difference between the full accrual and the modified accrual.
Kirk, you got
David, thank you for the great work you and your firm do. On the utility fund, did you see, we are very pleased to have new meters that we've installed. Did you see significant progress in our revenue stream?
Yeah, we did go up.
Good.
And
We're still operating at a deficit though,
right, current.
and of course, and if, we probably, this ain't the time to do it, but we need to sit down with y'all and get some guidance on how to do that, because technically we're supposed to raise our rates, but we also know that we're still behind the eight ball from the problems we had with Siemens, and it cut into over $3 million of our cash flow.
That hit you in the head. There's no question about it. You're doing pretty good for it.
And you hate to penalize the citizens because it's not their fault. But I know technically by GAO standards, we're supposed to raise our rates.
Well, you have to do what you have to do.
Well, but it ain't right. though.
There's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
I understand the political aspects of
I
it.
mean, we're catching up. I mean, Kirk, his question was very appropriate. We've made significant improvement in our revenue stream, but it's the cost that we've had to go in there and redo meters. Would you say we spent $200,000 more than we appropriated on the meters simply because of sizing problems? But my point is that's not the citizens' fault.
I understand.
We never would have had to do this if it hadn't been for that.
But technically, and I have this conversation all the time. We do quite a number of water districts.
Do what?
Water districts, rural water districts, plus the other cities that we have water and gas and that sort of stuff. It's not their fault. The citizens' fault. That's true. But also the integrity of the financial position of the community in which they live must be, it must be solid. You can't let that eventually bleed you
Playing you down,
into a bad situation. Because at that point, they're not going to have good water, and they're not going to have good roads, and they're not going to have good garbage pickup and all that other stuff. And you've got to be mindful of that in looking at this, but, you know, it wasn't the city's fault necessarily
I mean,
that everything went bad with,
and it's taken 8 years to get to this point
Oh, yeah.
because this all started in 2013.
and I remember on the front end of this thing, I believe that y'all were not really raising rates right off the bat. I mean, it took you a while
Increments,
to
yeah.
push something to the citizens and but just, it's a hard decision and it's y'all's decision to make, but just keep in mind in making that decision that somewhere in there, you gotta look for a trade-off, a balancing point. City gets a little more money for what they're doing from the water rates. And just do the best you can with it there and try to always make sure that it doesn't draw you down into a situation where the city doesn't have the money to do the other things they got.
Right.
So, cities do a lot of things for their citizens.
Questions and you folks?
Be free to ask.
Okay,
We're open.
okay, well, good report and we.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, David.
I always enjoy meeting with y'all.
Thank you, you feel the same way. Thank you. Okay, Danny, city attorney.
Your is Dominic, that need approval?
Ted made a motion.
Second.
Brian second, all in favor, say aye. Okay.
You've got a short summary memo in there in the folder from Jamie. I can take questions on that. I'm not sure if most of that is not better talked about in executive session. I would call your attention that I do want you to look at before your next meeting, this concept of whether or not we're going to do a disorderly business draft, and that'll be in there for you to review. Probably not something we can just cover this morning, but it'll be in the box for y'all to be reviewing because it's in draft.
It wasn't in the box yesterday, was it? Oh, okay. Because I read the whole thing.
You have executive session issues?
Yes.
Okay. All
They
right,
can be quick if needed.
okay. Billy Trotter, discussion on Wally Ashley, 504 Sunflower.
We're gonna need to recuse. I am.
Okay.
They do.
Okay.
Y'all not even listen to the discussion? No.
If you're doing it right, they got to be out of the room.
Okay.
Okay. Wally, come on up and Mr. Trotter, you want to lead the conversation and then we'll hear Wally?
Yes, sir. Good morning. How y'all doing? I spoke to Mr. Wiley after the first board meeting, and he advised that he wanted a permit, and I told him my stand on things or whatever, and I showed him the evaluation, and he's against it. So yesterday about 5:20, he had a structural engineer to call my cell phone and request an extension. I told him he had to come before the man board again, and the structural engineer advised that Wiley gave him some digital images of the back wall getting torn off the building. And I asked him about the entire building. He didn't have any knowledge of that. And I advised him from my standpoint about the 50% damage, because the building is rated at $17,920 and Wiley permit was for $110,000, which is over the 50% damage. So he has Mr. Brad Carter, structural engineer, that's supposed to come on this morning with some plans, something. He want to test the brick and mortar to see how long that's going to hold up or what have you. And I still advise Wiley to demolish the structure, but he's still trying to repair it at this point.
Okay. Wally.
Talked with Brad Carter with Carter and Miller Engineers out of Meridian, and sent him a bunch of pictures and some plot plans. Some drawings that I've had so that he could review them. He said, looking at those photos and documents that I sent to him, that it looks, that it could be, put back together, but he would have to do an on-site
So he hadn't even been here.
He hadn't been here yet. So
I thought you were gonna do that though, Wally, for this meeting. I mean, we keep giving you an extension to get that for us, and you put us in a tough situation because it never gets done.
I looked around and tried to find, to get an engineer, and I was recommended Brad, and I contacted him. And so I'd like to get him over here to take it so we can let him take a look at it and give his opinion on it.
I mean, Wally, everybody's telling us it needs to be torn down. We're not the decision makers on this. It's the professionals that are the decision makers, but it's left up to us to listen to them. And everybody says tear it down, but you have never presented us with one report from a legitimate source that has actually seen the building.
Let me get Mr. Carter here.
He needs to do the report. Mr. Carter doesn't need necessarily come see us. He needs to give the report to you and turn it in and whatever. I tell you what it does in a sense is other people say, well, wait a minute now. You're telling me to tear this down, but yet y'all's friend, Mr. Ashley, y'all don't make him do anything. So it puts us in a squeeze because of I bet it's been a decade since somebody's been in that building. I'm old.
The building can be rehabbed.
None of us have been in it. We're not, like you say, the decision.
Well, according to the people I've talked to, you don't need to go in.
Yeah, you don't want to go in it. It can be put back together.
Can it be put back together though, with the compliance issue we're facing at 50%, Wally?
Well, you're talking 50% of market value or 50% of the structural. I think 50% there structural.
Would you sell it for that price?
No.
You sell it at market price, and that's what we have to look at, Wally.
Market value on the.
I know.
Entirely.
I know, but we've been listening to this for close to 3 years now. This would be my recommendation. That if we don't have an engineer's on-site report by what's our next meeting?
It's just 2 weeks. That's probably
Okay,
not long
in 2
enough.
weeks, then we proceed with what our.
I think
Public
2
Works
weeks,
Department.
getting somebody here in 2 weeks would probably be,
Well, I mean,
You want to
it's
say
been 3 years.
yeah,
the second week, the second meeting of.
meeting them.
That'd give him.
No, I mean, we did this 45 days ago, and then 15 days ago we did it again. I mean, Wally, we're trying to work with you, Wally, but you won't get us anything to help us.
I've given, went back in and did the cost estimate on bringing the building back up.
But it's always been your assessment. It's not. We've never had a professional report. We've never had somebody. Our city Public Works Department has been doing this for years. They know what can and can't be
I
done.
think they've had engineer over there.
I thought so too.
Yeah, our engineer, yes. Took a look.
Was that, Tommy?
Our engineer, Josh, took a look at it
Josh looked at it.
with
Josh-
community development.
And Josh agrees with community development, correct, Billy?
That's correct. Josh and I met over on the property, and he agreed that the building need to be demolished as well.
In the scheme of real estate, Wally, and you've been in it a long time, I bet you that lot would be one of the most valuable lots that ever hit Cleveland.
More valuable than the
The
building.
building.
Yeah.
But it would, if you improve the building and bring it back up to condition, it should even bring in more. So what I want to do is to bring the building, rehab the building and bring it back into use. If Mr. Carter can, get up here and look at the building, he can do the report for me.
In 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
I'd have to talk to him. He should be on Zoom.
Wally, I mean,
What,
go ahead.
what, I mean, I asked him to be available to join the meeting and he said he would. So we could talk.
So wait,
Yes, sir, I'm here and I
Okay,
listen to those things and I don't have any problem, Mr. Ashby, being there and having a report in your hand within 2 weeks.
okay. There's our answer.
good job. Make a motion that in 2 weeks, we have an engineer's report or we proceed with community development.
Okay. Carrie made a motion, Danny second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Carter.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks,
Thank
Mr. Carter.
you. Look forward to seeing
Thank y'all.
You know,
Thank you.
I didn't know he's on there either. That answered it quickly. Danny, tell us, yes, sir, come back. Okay, thank you, Wally. Okay, human resources. I can't see her. Oh, there you are.
Take a vote.
Good morning. I have 3 needing your approval for hire unless you have any questions.
Okay, we talking among ourselves or we making a motion?
I make a motion, go ahead.
Robert made a motion, Ted second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
That's all. Thank you.
okay, thank you. Is that it on the agenda? Okay. Kirk, we'll go in executive session.
We consider entering executive session.
Second.
Litigation, I believe is on the issue.
You got a
Gary?
public safety matter down there, you see.
Public safety.
Kirk, Gary, all in favor, say aye.
Move we in executive session, those same reasons.
Kirk,
Second.
Gary, all in favor, say aye.